This is the time then of what Joanna Macy calls the great turning. And this is our challenge, this is our adventure, this is our calling, this is the work that we were born to. Joanna calls it the essential adventure of our time. And here's what she says. She says, whether or not it's recognized by corporate-controlled media, the great turning is a reality. Although we can't know yet if it will take hold in time for humans and other complex life forms to survive, we can know that the great turning is underway. And it is gaining momentum through the actions of countless individuals and groups around the world. To see this as the larger context of our lives clears our vision and summons our courage. Vision and courage. Let's take vision first. We can't be naive about the challenge that we face. There are those who will oppose us. After a meeting of the Society of Environmental Journalists in Missoula some time ago, I happened to walk out with one of the keynote speakers who was a representative of the American Petroleum Institute. Just him and me. And I said, okay, Kathy, this is your big chance. So I said, you have any children? He knew exactly where I was going. He pulled himself up tall, which was very tall. And with his bald head and his big long greatcoat, he stood over me and he said, don't you ever, 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 ever underestimate the power of the fossil fuel industry. I can never think of the right thing to say in the heat of the moment. What I said was, yeah, for the first time today, I believe you. And it's not just big oil. There are lots of industries that are heavily, heavily invested in world-destroying practices, and they have rigged the rules against decency and sanity. And now I know what I should have said. You know, 2 years later, now I know in my mother's best voice, my best mother's voice, I should have said, decent people don't take the last damn cookie on the plate. Or I should have said, smart people don't design an economy that's a dead ringer for a going out of business sale. Or I should have said, it's wrong to take whatever you want for your profligate life and leave a ransacked and dangerously destabilized world. The point that I would have loved to have engaged him with is that we have to make the argument that we have an obligation to the future to leave a world as rich in possibility as our own, and we have to pledge right now, in every design and decision, that will honor the dreams of our descendants as much as we honor our own. We are, in Thomas Berry's beautiful phrase, we are the dream of the earth, we human beings. We are the means by which the universe turns its gaze on itself and celebrates its beauty and imagines its future and explores its meaning. And the question now is, where will we, at this hinge point in history, where if you would drive a nail through this decade, all of planetary history will shift in the balance. Where, the question is, will we throw the weight of our dreams? And so we turn to the work at hand. How can we, you beautiful people, how can we create a town that embeds in its very bones our dreams of sanity and sharing? And this truly is the fun part. Here is where we can make our imagination fly. Of course, Corvallis of all places can be a model to the rest of the nation about how to escape from the iron fist of fossil fuels. We can be a model of how to live in harmony with the earth and with the future and with one another. We can quickly become carbon neutral if we try. Look what you all are bringing to the table. Education, health, relative wealth, elders here and young people here, amazing experience, a good start on healthy landscapes, a functional democracy, so far so good in this town, and talent, Oh dear God, the talent you bring together into this room. If it can be done anywhere, it can be done in Corvallis. But notice, it's not a resilient community that we want. Resilient, that word resilient, comes from the Latin words re, which means back, and saliare, which means to jump. So it means to jump back after a disturbance to return to a former state. But we don't want a community that's hardened against change. We don't want a community that leaps back into its unjust, and unsustainable present. What's required is far more radical, literally, far more uprooting. What we need is prosilience, forward jumping forward, leaping into a new state, this new crystallization that's different from anything the world has ever seen. And so this is a kind of radical imagining that calls us to question our current economic systems, our educational systems, our food production systems, our power grid, our solipsism, and the presumptions of private property. This won't be easy, but it's these kind of questions, these questionings, that will release the power and the beauty of the human imagination. Can we tell a story in Corvallis about how to live with the land, not on it? How will we live once we give up the idea that we're separate from the earth and superior? Can we design a community where when people ask, can I make a living in this place? The answer is yes, yes. But when people ask, can I make a killing in this place? The answer is no, not here, not anymore. What do we see? What do we see when we close our eyes and imagine a world where we don't burn things up to stay warm? What do we see when we close our eyes and imagine a world where we no longer explode fuels in the cylinders of internal combustion engines in order to move from place to place? And what do we hear when we close our eyes and imagine a post-carbon world? Yeah, nothing. A new quiet, a new peace, birdsong, the laughter of children. You guys remember that cartoon? It had a whiteboard, and it had a bulleted list on the whiteboard, and there was everything up there: energy independence, preservation of forests, sustainability, indigenous rights, green jobs, livable cities, healthy children, fresh food, environmental justice, renewables, clean air, clean water, all right up there on the board. And there are those two guys in suits. Remember this cartoon? Two guys in suits, they said, well, what if climate change is a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? Climate change is not a hoax, and we have our work cut out for us. Because what's up there on that cartoon's whiteboard, that's our agenda. It's going to take courage, so let us turn to courage. This is not a small thing. There's new polling out, and it's polling us. It is polls about those of us who are alarmed or concerned about climate change. The polls are showing that we feel afraid. 85% of us. Yes? We feel sad. 81% of us. Yes? 79% of us are angry. 76% of us are disgusted. And worst of all, 61% of us feel helpless. That won't do. That really won't do. We're going to have to find what Richard Wilbur calls the clean horse of our courage. Or maybe not. Because when I think of my courage, I sure don't think of any clean horse. I think about this dusty old mule. I think about my courage as being stubborn and tired and not a little bit afraid. But if that's the kind of courage you have, then that's the kind of courage we're going to have to call on. We face this river a powerful river that's bearing down on us, raging through our lives, tangled forces of profit and complacency and corruption, and we turn and we ask ourselves, how are we going to stop that river? Well, what I want to say is that one of the things I've learned in walking along the Willamette, under the cottonwoods in the fall and watching that river, is that we don't have to stop the river. I was studying that water not very long ago, and what I saw was a steady and strong current. And there was a root ball that had dislodged from the bank and had jammed itself up against a mid-river stone. And when the current encountered that obstruction, that current divided itself, curled around the stone, and reversed direction. And in two pockets in the eddies behind the root, the current had slowed and it had dropped its load of gravel and sand, and a willow had taken root there. And the architecture of the roots divided and slowed the river even further, so more gravel gathered, and there was an island where new plants could grow. One obstruction had changed the course and the dynamics of the energy of the river. One obstruction had changed the river from an agent of destruction to a construction engineer that built the very structures that slowed it and turned its current. So, by analogy, we stand in the current of a raging river, and we might despair, but we don't have to stop the river. We don't have to lie awake at night in terror at the power of the forces that are rushing us towards ruin. Our work, and the work of every other person who loves the world, this one, is to make a small blockage, and another, a deflection, and another, to change the energy of the river. And as it swirls around these obstructions, the river will slow, it will lose power, and it will create itself. It will create more obstructions, islands, gravel bars, eddies, and that will change its course forever. And I'm told by my hydrology friends that at some point, when there are enough obstructions, slowing, changing, deflecting the river, that what we have next is an avulsion. And an avulsion is sudden, it's hard to foresee, it's often violent, and what happens is it changes the course of the river forever. And the river leaps forward into a new way of flowing. So this is our work. This is the work of creative disruption. To make these small deflections in complacency, and small obstructions to profits, and small blockages to cowardice, small blockages to selfishness. And this is the work of moral courage, to stand firm in that flow. And this is the work of community, a work of caring and courage, the community of all living things, to line up side by side and combine our efforts at deflection. And this, above all, is the work of radical imagination, to plant new ideas on those new islands where something better and more generous can grow. I don't want to say it's easy, but I want to say that it's possible. And if it's possible anywhere, it's possible here. How will we find the courage and the stamina? I went about a month ago over the Shot Pouch Cabin with my friends Robin Kimmerer and Allison Hawthorne Deming. It was a beautiful afternoon with an afternoon moon that watched us as if it were trying to tell us something. Our only goal in going out there was to put our heads and our hearts together to summon our courage for the work ahead. The first thing we did, of course, was we cried. But then we made a list. And I would invite you to make this your list as well. And here I will close with these things that are on our to-do list. We will have faith in the power of small good deeds. We will pray in gratitude, not in supplication. We will not say, "Dear God, give me strength." We will pray, "Thank you, God, for the strength you have given me." We will not enlist in any war against the earth, not in our work, not in our investments, not in our groceries, not in our homes, not in our play. We will claim our values as an act of resistance. What diminishes or dishonors them will find no place in our lives. We will stand as solid as rocks in the river, knowing that the stronger and faster the current, the more difference a single stone can make. We will make a moral decision to be hopeful. We will bear witness in every way we know how, on every sidewalk and every page, to the glories of the world and the sins against it. By the river, under the great trees, we will reclaim the sources of our comfort and strength. We will understand that we are daughters and sons of the earth, pulled from her spinning surface. And so we will take on the duties of the moon. We will not look away, never. The shadow of the earth will pass over our faces, but it will not erase us. At the edge of that moving shadow, our faces, our characters will be most clearly seen. We will reflect the light that comes to us from the darkest spaces of the night. This is what we were born to do. This is the work we now begin to do together. Thank you.